As the Detroit Lions get set to play against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday, perhaps they have discovered a fatal weakness that might allow them to have a victory on Sunday, and we're going to talk about it. So stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. It doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, old Detroit Lions fans, and welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. If y'all haven't quite figured out, I am officially back in New York after my TDY assignment in Virginia, and I cannot express to you how absolutely wonderful it is to be back in my, actual studio, be able to do all the things that I normally can do, because now I have the ability to do everything in one singular spot, rather than all the nonsense I had to do while I was in Virginia, but we'll talk about that at a later time. Right now, we're talking about this. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Everybody that I've talked to, when I'm talking about this Cardinals game that's coming up, they are quite worried about this game. And, for crying out loud, they have a pretty, I'd say, solid reason to be worried. For crying out loud, they just absolutely decimated and destroyed the Rams freaking 41-10, where we went all the way to overtime with them and we barely beat them by 6 points. So I know a lot of people are looking at that and they're like, gee, we better be on top of our game, because if not, we might get spanked. And you know what? I'm not going to disagree that we still need to be on top of our game here. But I think to a certain extent, the Lions fans that are getting all worried about this whole situation with the game against, the Cardinals, they're kind of working themselves up a little bit here, because the way I look at it is the Cardinals, while they had an absolutely, outstanding performance against the Rams, I honestly kind of look at them a little bit as a paper tiger. And here's the reason why I'm saying this. I would expect that a team like the Cardinals is going to beat up on the Rams. And let me explain that. Let's understand the circumstances as to how both of those teams came into that game. Number one, the Rams did not have their starting left tackle. They did not have their backup left tackle, so they were already weak there. They also didn't have their starting tight end. They did not have Puka Nacua. Then, as things progressed throughout the game, they also lost Jonah Jackson. They also lost, I think it was somebody else. And on top of that, they also came to that game without Darius Williams. So that Rams team going into that game was severely depleted. So the fact that the Cardinals beat up on the Rams in their current state does not surprise me. In fact, had the Rams able to have found some way to keep that game close, that would have been surprising. Especially considering the fact that by the time they got to the end of the game, they had any offensive weapons. Like literally, Stafford was throwing to third and fourth string receivers by the end of the game because he'd lost everything else. So it's like, I would expect the Cardinals would win that way. So, part of this episode, at least in the early goings, is to calm Lions fans' fears about, okay, I understand the Rams got their asses whooped, but let's keep things in context here before we start, going off the rails and start having panic attacks. But when we're talking about this game that's upcoming, I believe that the Lions, if they take a look back at the Buffalo Bills game, which I think is a much better measuring tool, if you will, to figure out how the Cardinals actually play, they will find that there are fatal weaknesses that this Cardinals team has and that they can very well exploit. There are three specific things that I think the Lions can take advantage of in this upcoming game. And here are the three things. The first thing I think the Lions can take advantage of is the power run game. I went back and I watched the entire Bills-Cardinals game. And the one thing I kept noticing over and over and over again is that the Bills constantly ran power run schemes. They were not trying to take things outside very often. They were not trying to get cute and use speed. They were trying to power run the ball. They were constantly taking it in between the tackles, going up the gut. They were trying to physically dominate the Cardinals up front. And they pretty much did that throughout the entire game. Now, I know if people look at the stat line, they're not going to be necessarily too impressed. James Cook, who was the primary running back, had only 17 rushes for 71 yards, no rushing touchdowns, and 3.7 on average a rush. That's not exactly a great showing. But let's keep, again, things in context here. Number one, the Bills' O-line was at full strength when they did this. Well, the Lions are going to have their full offensive line complement in this game, and our offensive line is better than the Bills. So, okay, that's already advantage to the Lions. But also, number two, take a look at the other running backs that the Bills had in that game. They had a couple of other guys, but none of them are really prominent prominent running backs. The Lions have the best dual back system in the entirety of the NFL between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So we have the ability to switch it up if we want to, and both of these guys can do power run schemes. Obviously, one's better than the other. But still, my whole point of the matter is that the Lions have much more options in the run game than the Bills did, and the Bills were able to find a way to win that game. Then, let's think about this, folks. If you go and you check the analytics, if you take a look at the Cardinals' run defense against the Bills, on PFF, their run defense grade was a 57.4. That's a pretty below average grade. But then when you take a look at how well they did against the Rams, it all of a sudden jumped all the way up to 80.5. Well, gee, I wonder why that's the case. Could it possibly be that the Bills' defense is a bit more seasoned, a bit more experienced, has a bit better of a personnel package versus the Rams, which has, oh, that's right, has rookies, it's missing players, it's not the same defense that it was last year. So again, what I'm trying to get you guys into understanding here is that there are multiple ways to look at how the Cardinals were able to freaking destroy the Rams, but lost against the Bills. Because again, if you take a look at the Rams, like I said, they were missing quite a lot of their offensive line personnel. They didn't have their starting left tackle due to suspension. They lost Joe Noteboom freaking to injury against us last week. And then Jonah Jackson had to leave the game with an injury. So, okay, they have no ability to really block up front. Then, like I said, they came into the game without Higbee and Nakua, and then Kupp was lost during the game. So by the time it was all said and done, the only thing the Rams had left to work with was the run game, which when you become a one-dimensional offense, it's very easy for a defense to key in on that and stop you. So that was something that instantaneously jumped right out to me. The Lions have one of the better running games, if not the best run game in the NFL, behind the best offensive line. We should run the ball quite consistently and should be able to dominate in that department. That's weakness number one. Weakness number two. This is building off of the run game, but it's going to be built off of it in a different capacity. The play action game. Again, everybody knows that the Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL in terms of play action. But if you take a look at the last two games that the Cardinals have played, Rams and Bills, they have not seen a whole lot of play action this year so far. If you go and you check out Josh Allen's passing concepts on PFF, he's literally thrown 7 play action passes this year. That's not a whole hell of a lot. And then if you take a look at Matthew Stafford, he's only thrown 13. So if you realistically think about it, the Cardinals have only seen about maybe 8, 9, 10 at most play action passes through 2 games. That's not a whole lot of a sample size to work with. And when you're talking about two types of teams that don't utilize play action, either because of the fact they don't have the personnel to run it, as was the Rams, or the Bills that didn't want to run it even though they had the personnel, that tells me that the Cardinals are not going to be prepared for that kind of a thing. So when you face the fact of the Lions having a very strong run game with a strong offensive line, and the fact they haven't seen a whole lot of play action this year, it makes for a very deadly combo. Because again, let's think about this, folks. Jared Goff is arguably one of the best play action passers in the NFL. In fact, if you still take a look at his stats right now in 2024 for his stats off of play action, Jared Goff has been 14 of 20 for 70%, 211 yards, 10.6 an average a throw, no touchdowns or interceptions, but a 104.4 passer rating. It tells me this: when we do play action, we still have the ability to not only move the ball, but move the ball well. And when we're talking about against a defense that has not seen a whole lot of play action this year, that to me is telling me, okay, these guys are ripe. They are primed to be taken advantage of. So there's that. And again, the fact that the Lions have their full complement of weapons, they're going to have Sam Laporta, they're going to have Jameson Williams, they're going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tim Patrick has gotten another week of practice. And you've got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. You have the full ensemble. That is going to give the Lions an immense advantage compared to the two teams that the Cardinals have already played this year. So there's fatal weakness number 2. We then get to the final weakness that I think the Lions are going to be able to take advantage of. Pressure the ever-living hell out of Kyler Murray. Now, I know for a lot of Lions fans, this is already an area they're focusing on because they are worried about Kyler Murray's speed and agility. And you know what? They have a reason to worry about it because Kyler Murray is still a very, very formidable threat on the ground running around. But let's understand something here. The Lions are one of the best teams in the NFL so far, and even going into last year, that have been able to pressure and sack the quarterback. Let's take a look at this. If you take a look at the Bills, who beat the Cardinals, the Bills in that game against the Cardinals, they got 4 sacks on Kyler Murray. They were able to either apply pressure or sack him on 21 of his dropbacks to throw. Kyler Murray threw 38 times in that game, or at the very least had 38 dropbacks. If you do the simple math, that is a 55% ratio of Kyler Murray's dropbacks he got pressured or sacked. That's a huge thing to talk about right there because it means the quarterback, more often than not, was not comfortable. And it shows. If you take a look at his passer rating in that game, I think it was in like the low 90s. Okay, now let's take a look at the Rams. The Rams, who again, no Aaron Donald, 2 rookie, defensive players, plus on top of that, some of their guys were coming into that game injured, such as Kobe Durant and a couple of others. Oh, that's right. How many sacks did the Rams get in that game? 1. They got 1 measly sack on Kyler Murray. How many times did they pressure, Kyler Murray? They only pressured him 8 times. So between the sack and the pressure, Kyler Murray was only under duress 9 times. He dropped back 26 times. That is a mere 34.6% of the time was Kyler Murray under any sort of duress or not comfortable in the pocket. Let's just call for what it is. I'm not a mathematician, but 55% versus 34.6%, that is a vast difference. And if you give a professional quarterback that much time in the pocket and you don't really get after him, I wonder why then freaking Kyler Murray was able to throw all those passes to freaking Marvin Harrison, and Marvin Harrison had a 100-plus yard game and 2 passing touchdowns. Kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? But then, let's think about this. Like I said, the Lions have one of the best rushing units in the NFL this year. And again, they had one of the best rushing units last year in terms of applying pressure. So far this year, the Lions are 4th in the NFL in terms of pass rush pressure against quarterbacks. They are ranked at 32.9%. That's outstanding. Then if you take a look at the amount of sacks they have this year, they have 7. That's tied for 3rd best. Their hurry percentage against quarterbacks is ranked 9th with 12.7%. And their quarterback knockdown percentage is ranked 7th with 13.2%. And Hutch leads the league in the NFL with all sacks with 5.5 sacks. Out of the Lions, 7 sacks. Okay, that's very good news. That's very awesome, wonderful stats to look at. You want to know why? Because again, even though we take a look at how the Bills were able to get pressure on Kyler Murray 55% of the time and make him uncomfortable, if you take a look at all of those categories that I just talked about with the Lions, the pressure percentage, the hurry percentage, the QB knockdown percentage, and all the stats as far as the sacks are concerned, neither the Bills nor the Rams have the ability to say that they're anywhere close to that. In fact, I think for the QB hurry percentage, the knockdown percentage, and the pressure percentage, neither the Bills or the Rams come anywhere close to the top 15. So now the Cardinals are going to go against a team that is one of the best in, pressuring the quarterback versus having gone against 2 teams that are not very good at pressuring the quarterback. And Hutchinson is one of the best rushers in the game. So when you think about it, and you add all this information together, the Lions have a pretty simple set of marching orders here. Pressure the hell out of Kyler Murray. It's going to help in stopping Marvin Harrison Jr. because if the quarterback's pressured, that's right, his eyes aren't downfield. He can't see where Marvin Harrison is. It helps out the pass coverage as well. So, pressure Kyler Murray. Make him uncomfortable in the pocket. Run the hell out of the ball. Keep running the ball up the gut. Tire out the Cardinals' front 7. And when you tire them out, then you can start going to play action passing for 2 reasons. 1, the linebackers are going to be tired. They're not going to be as quick to react against play action. And on top of that, the linebackers have not seen a whole lot of play action this year, so they're not going to be ready for it. They're not going to be in the mind of being ready for it. There's a lot of ways the Lions can take advantage of this Cardinals team. There's a lot of ways they can take advantage of their weaknesses. And that's why I'm telling you, I understand that the Cardinals destroyed the hell out of the Rams, but I think that was more of the fact that they just came up against a very weak Rams opponent that was at their home place, and that's where they took advantage of that. The Rams are not the Lions. The Lions are significantly deeper. They're significantly better. They're much more seasoned. So for me, it's like, okay here, I expect a good game. But I also expect that this is going to be a game where the Lions really start turning the corner. Because again, like Campbell said, they just need to work on, getting some small details finalized, get them right on the same page, and boom, we're off to the races. And I think this is the game where we can do that. But having said that, folks, I'm going to end the episode here, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all please to make sure you hit that bell notification icon as well, so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel grows and the greater the channel spreads. And with that being said, whether you've been a long-time viewer or this is your first time viewing my content, I hope you all enjoyed the content. I really do. I also hope you got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. And I just want to say thank you all for coming back, for, the ability to come back here to in New York, and be able to watch my, from my studio again. Having said that, I'm going to end the episode and say, God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.